You won't believe what happened when a homeowners association decided to evict a disabled veteran from his own home. This wasn't just any eviction. This was a battle that sparked outrage, brought a family together, and caught the attention of some very powerful people. Imagine being forced out of your home after serving your country, only to have your daughter show up with the backing of the Pentagon itself. That's exactly what unfolded in this unbelievable story of courage, injustice, and unexpected support. Our story begins with a proud veteran who sacrificed so much only to face an uphill fight with his HOA. It started with small complaints, then fines, and finally the heartbreaking notice to leave. But this isn't just about rules or property lines. This is about respect, dignity, and standing up for what's right. The veteran's daughter, refusing to stand by and watch her father lose everything, stepped in with a fierce determination that nobody expected. What started as a simple family dispute quickly turned into something much bigger, drawing in officials from one of the most powerful institutions in the country. As tensions rose and the eviction deadline loomed, the community watched in disbelief. How could an HOA push so hard against a disabled veteran? What happens when a daughter takes matters into her own hands, backed by the weight of the Pentagon? There are so many questions that still need answers, and the situation is far from over. Stick around, because in the next part, we'll dive deeper into how this unlikely showdown unfolded, revealing shocking details about the HOA's actions and the incredible response that changed everything. You won't want to miss what happens when a family refuses to back down and shows the true meaning of honor and fight. This is a story about more than just eviction. It's about justice, family, and standing tall against the odds to really understand how this situation spiraled out of control. You need to know more about the veteran and his family. He's a man who gave years of his life to serve his country, coming home with physical challenges that made everyday life harder, but never broke his spirit. For him, his home was more than just a place to live, was a symbol of stability and sacrifice. After all, veterans often face many obstacles, and losing a home isn't just a financial blow. It's a personal loss that hits deep. His daughter grew up watching her dad fight battles both abroad and at home, and she never imagined she'd have to fight another one just to keep him safe where he belongs. The conflict started with minor disputes, small complaints about lawn care, parking, and noise. But those little issues quickly snowballed into formal warnings and escalating fines. The HOA's attitude hardened, and soon the veteran was hit with an eviction notice. Many neighbors whispered that the HOA was being unreasonable, especially given the veteran's health and service record. Still, the official line was that rules were rules and nobody was exempt. The daughter, however, sensed something deeper was going on. She started digging and found inconsistencies in how the HOA was applying its rules. It seemed like they were targeting her father unfairly, maybe even trying to force him out for reasons that had nothing to do with community standards. Fueled by frustration and love for her father, she reached out to people who could help veterans. Groups, legal advisors, and eventually contacts within the Department of Defense. That's when things took an unexpected turn. What began as a local dispute caught the attention of Pentagon officials who take veteran welfare seriously. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about an eviction. It became a larger fight for justice and respect. But what would the HOA do next? And how far would the family go to protect their own? The answers aren't clear yet. The tension is only rising as the battle between the disabled veteran and the HOA grew more intense. Tensions in the neighborhood started to flare. Some neighbors supported the veteran, quietly sympathizing with his situation and questioning the HOA's harsh stance. Others felt torn, caught between wanting a peaceful community and feeling pressured to side with the association's strict enforcement of the rules. The HOA board members insisted they were simply doing their job, Enforcing guidelines meant to protect property values and maintain order. But many wondered if there was something more personal behind their relentless pursuit. Meanwhile, the veteran's daughter wasn't just fighting on her father's behalf. She was uncovering a web of issues within the HOA itself. She learned about previous disputes where residents felt bullied or unfairly targeted, especially those who pushed back against the board. Rumors floated about conflicts of interest and power struggles hidden beneath the polished surface of community management. This wasn't just a simple case of rule enforcement. It felt like a fight against an institution that didn't want to be questioned, adding another layer to the story. Local veterans organizations started to get involved, raising awareness and putting pressure on the HOA to reconsider its actions. The daughter's connection to the Pentagon brought an unexpected spotlight, and suddenly, what had been a private family fight was now a public issue. The media caught wind of the story, and social media chatter amplified the voices of those demanding justice for the veteran. At the same time, the veteran himself struggled quietly with the stress and uncertainty. His health wasn't what it used to be, and the looming threat of losing his home weighed heavily on him. He wondered if standing up against the HOA was worth the personal toll. But the thought of giving up without a fight wasn't an option either. The situation became a tangled mix of legal battles, emotional strain, and community division. Every new development seemed to raise more questions than answers. Would the HOA back down? Would the Pentagon's involvement change the outcome? And how far would the family have to go to protect what was rightfully theirs? The story was far from over, and the next moves from each side promised to keep everyone on edge. As the days passed, the pressure on the veteran and his daughter grew almost unbearable. The HOA wasn't backing down, in fact. Their notices became more aggressive, threatening immediate legal action if the property wasn't vacated. The community was on edge, watching a war unfold that no one expected. Rumors spread that the HOA was preparing to bring in security to enforce the eviction, and neighbors whispered anxiously about what that could mean for the family. The veteran, already fragile, found himself caught in a storm far beyond what he imagined when he first received that eviction notice. Meanwhile, the daughter worked tirelessly behind the scenes, coordinating with veteran advocacy groups and legal teams, all while trying to keep her father's spirits up. She had made contact with Pentagon officials who were now closely monitoring the situation. It wasn't every day that a local HOA dispute reached the halls of one of the country's most powerful institutions. And the daughter's resolve seemed to strengthen with every challenge. She knew this was bigger than just a fight over a house. It was about standing up for those who served and demanding respect where it was overdue. Tensions inside the neighborhood grew as well. Some residents took sides openly, turning what was once a peaceful street into a battleground of opinions and emotions. The veteran supporters held small gatherings, sharing stories of service and sacrifice, while others felt frustrated by the public attention and the disruption it caused. It seemed like no one could stay neutral anymore. The looming eviction deadline was like a dark cloud hanging over the family's future. Every phone call, every letter from the HOA, and every quiet moment of waiting added weight to the situation. The daughter knew the next few days could change everything, either bringing resolution or pushing the conflict to an explosive breaking point. But just when it seemed like the pressure couldn't build anymore, an unexpected development arrived, one that would send shockwaves through the community and turn the fight into something no one saw coming. Just when it seemed like the battle had reached its peak, a new twist threw everything into chaos. Out of nowhere, a previously hidden clause in the HOA's bylaws surfaced, one that no one had mentioned before. This clause gave the HOA extraordinary power to seize properties under vague community interest reasons, a loophole that could make the veteran's eviction not just possible, but inevitable. The discovery sent shockwaves through the veterans' legal team and raised Serious questions about how transparent the HOA had been all along. The veteran's daughter was stunned. This new development wasn't just a surprise. It was a game changer. It meant that the fight wasn't just about the initial eviction. Notice anymore, it was about exposing a potential abuse of power that could affect dozens of other families in the neighborhood. Suddenly, the stakes were much higher, and the conflict took on a darker, more complex tone as word of the clause leaked. More neighbors started speaking out, some accusing the HOA of manipulating rules to push residents out for reasons nobody fully understood. The community split even further, with heated debates unfolding online and in town hall meetings. The veteran's daughter knew that this was the moment when the fight had to get louder and stronger, because if the HOA got away with this, it could set a dangerous precedent. At the same time, the Pentagon's involvement deepened. Officials began asking tougher questions about the HOA's practices and the treatment of veterans within civilian communities. The daughter's phone buzzed nonstop with calls from reporters, legal advisors. The day of the HOA's urgent meeting arrived, and the tension in the neighborhood was thicker than ever. The veteran, his daughter, and a small group of supporters showed up determined to face the board head-on. The room was packed with residents, reporters, and legal representatives. Everyone waiting to see if the HOA would finally back down or push forward with their harsh eviction plan. The air was heavy with anticipation as the board president took the floor and began to address the crowd. But instead of doubling down, something unexpected happened. Faced with mounting public pressure, evidence of the questionable bylaws, and the involvement of Pentagon officials, the HOA board announced they would rescind the eviction notice. They admitted their enforcement had been too aggressive and agreed to review their policies with input from the community. The room erupted in a mixture of relief and disbelief. For the veteran and his daughter, this was a victory hard-won through courage, persistence, and the power of standing up for what's right. Yet, just as the family started to breathe easier, the daughter received a discreet message from one of her Pentagon contacts. It revealed that while this battle was won, the Pentagon was now investigating a broader pattern. Several HOAs across the country had been quietly targeting veterans and vulnerable homeowners using similar loopholes. What began as a local fight was revealing a nationwide problem, one that could affect many more families who had no idea they were at risk. The veteran looked around at the faces of neighbors who had stood with him and realized this was about more than just one home or one family. It was about justice, respect, and the fight to protect those who have given so much. As the crowd slowly dispersed, there was a shared understanding. This was only the beginning of a much larger movement. And while the HOA's eviction was halted, the real battle for fairness and dignity was just getting started. The day of the HOA's urgent meeting arrived, and the tension in the neighborhood was thicker than ever. The veteran, his daughter, and a small group of supporters showed up determined to face the board head-on. The room was packed with residents, reporters, and legal representatives, everyone waiting to see if the HOA would finally back down or push forward with their harsh eviction plan. The air was heavy with anticipation as the board president took the floor and began to address the crowd. But instead of doubling down, something unexpected happened. Faced with mounting public pressure, evidence of the questionable bylaws, and the involvement of Pentagon officials, the HOA board announced they would rescind the eviction notice. They admitted their enforcement had been too aggressive and agreed to review their policies with input from the community. The room erupted in a mixture of relief and disbelief. For the veteran and his daughter, this was a victory hard-won through courage, persistence, and the power of standing up for what's right. Yet, just as the family started to breathe easier, the daughter received a discreet message from one of her Pentagon contacts. It revealed that while this battle was won, the Pentagon was now investigating a broader pattern. Several HOAs across the country had been quietly targeting veterans and vulnerable homeowners using similar loopholes. What began as a local fight was revealing a nationwide problem, one that could affect many more families who had no idea they were at risk. The veteran looked around at the faces of neighbors who had stood with him and realized this was about more than just one home or one family. It was about justice, respect, and the fight to protect those who have given so much. As the crowd slowly dispersed, there was a shared understanding. This was only the beginning of a much larger movement. And while the HOA's eviction was halted, the real battle for fairness and dignity was just getting started.